So, asked my experience versus an English prison experience, what I would say is every single person's experience is different. You know, there's probably softer prisons in America and there's harder prisons, and I was in an extreme one. But depends what guards you run into, depends what prisoners you run into. Anything can happen to you at all in these places. It's like you're in a video game surrounded by danger and just things just happen to you out of the blue. Suicides right now in the UK prison system at an all-time high. Cuts, budget cuts, cut down staff, and magistrate out of Manchester told me that they cut back there and they brought a private prison in, and to keep the overhead down they only had 2 guards watching hundreds of prisoners. It was getting completely out of control. So maybe English prisons are softer than US prisons right now, but they look into the US to bring in that system here, the politicians, because it's the same corporations running the big prisons looking at us as a growth market. 1 in 100 adults is in prison right now in America because of this. They've got 25% of the world's prison population. David Cameron said, look into the private prisons to rehabilitate our prisoners, and that's what it's all about. And that's why you see all these headlines in the UK, a lot of stuff about how soft it is here, because they're actually softening the public up to bring this stuff in from America. It's all about just making money. It's mostly people who are addicted.
Would you say that because of the fact that you described your early life as being from a good family, nurturing family and all the rest of it, that gave you something to come back to, a base to come back to, whereas if you didn't have that base to come back to, and you were basically thrown on the streets as a young kid, with no one really caring when you came home or you didn't come home, whether you'd be in a different position?
Having such a supportive family has been the linchpin of me rehabilitating, because I went right back to their house, stayed there for a year. You know, my mum said I was like a puppy dog following around waiting for orders, because I was institutionalised when I first got out. Now, a lot of guys get disowned by their family members because of involvement in drugs. And I support a charity out of London called Prisoners Abroad. Some of the proceeds of my books go to them. And UK citizens who've got in trouble overseas, they end up back in London and they've got nowhere to turn, and they go back on the streets and they end up just going right back to crime. So Prisoners Abroad, they give them a shower right away, they find them a place to stay, they give them advice about getting job applications in and all the benefits they're entitled to and that kind of stuff to help them get re-established in life. But yeah, you know, I was blessed to have such a good family because that helped me. You know, it was a foundation for me then to do all this other stuff. You know. Anyone else got any questions?
How did you get your blogs out? How did you get...
Okay, I was in maximum security jail when the blog started, and my aunt Anne would come and visit me on the weekends. Now in maximum security, the visits are through big plexiglass screens. If you've ever seen that movie Silence of the Lambs, when Clarice Starling goes to meet Hannibal Lecter and she's staring at him through the screen and she's speaking to him through a phone. That's what I was like with this visit with my aunt. I'm chained, one hand's chained to a table and the other I've got this phone. So I couldn't smuggle anything through that room, but I hid what I wrote in legal paperwork and old letters that I could release to my aunt through the visitation officers. And they're trained to look for contraband, so they're searching through these things, looking for drugs, syringes, cash, and they're not noticing stuff. It's the written word. So it's going under their radar, and at the end of the visit, they handed it to my aunt right under their noses. They were actually, you know, they were part of the process of getting it out. And then she typed them up and emailed them to my mum and dad, and that's how the whole blog started.
How long was this going on?
That was at the tail end of my remand, and I was in the remand jail for 26 months, and it was like the last, 6 months at the remand that my aunt was doing that. When I got moved to the prison system, I actually started to mail them out, and if I didn't want the guards to open, I used legal mail. I could send mail through the British Embassy, for example, which was classified as legal mail, and then the embassy would forward that mail to my parents. Yeah.
How long were you in prison for?
I got sentenced to 9.5 years, and because I was a first-time non-violent drug offender, I served just under 6.
I started reading the first book.
Hard time? So where are you up to?
Probably, I think it's about chapter 15.
Okay, yeah, it's a catalogue of horrors, isn't it, up until that point?
But, you know, it's... What did they actually charge you with? Because the book, it kind of didn't...
my main charge was conspiracy. An extremely complex legal case, and in a conspiracy case, if you're the head of the conspiracy, which I was, I'm then responsible for all the crimes of everyone who is a co-conspirator. And I had over 100 co-defendants, so there was hundreds of crimes committed by all the co-conspirators. I mean, the bottom line was I was running an ecstasy ring, that was the thing. And then over time, what happens is you negotiate with them over 26 months, and I got it down to pleading guilty to talking about drugs on the phone. Like a class 3 felony. Yeah. They charged me class 2s, but they dropped all those, yeah, so that's what it was. Yeah.
You know, did you say you moved from a medium security to a high security?
Yes. I was moved from different security levels because of a number of dirty tricks that was played on me by the prosecutor. Watching the minutes.
It's alright, I'm watching them.
In my remand period, the prosecutor, what she did was she was trying to break me down psychologically so I would sign a plea bargain. The remand jail is a conveyor belt to the prison system. They just want you to sign a plea bargain and not go to trial, because if you exercise your right to a trial, it can cost the state tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of dollars to try you. It's all a business model. So they make the remand conditions as hard as possible so that you'll just sign your way out of there, and I was refusing to do that. So a year in, she stopped my girlfriend from visiting me. She was my lifeline. She charged her with one prescription pill found on the day of the raid without a written prescription next to it, which was a class 6 felony. So she criminalised my girlfriend to stop her from visiting me. And she moved me over to in with the murderers and the cockroaches because my bail was doubled. Now, if your bail goes over $1 million, you automatically change custody level. So that's why I went from medium security to maximum security. And they were also telling me I was facing up to a 200-year maximum sentence. And the last thing that the prosecutor did was, I had 3 sentences that made my 9.5-year sentence, and one of them was a 26-month sentence. But she put it down in her paperwork as a 26-year sentence. So I was fast-tracked to the super maximum security prison right after I was sentenced. Yeah. So that was the final farewell from the prosecutor for me. Yeah. Took about 3 or 4 months to sort that out. Yeah.
You used T-Bone as your overcoming fear and anxiety
Yeah.
person. I mean, he's a drug addict. He's back in prison.
Yeah.
Has he overcome his fear and anxiety?
He's not overcome his addiction. He's very brave, but it's like there's good and bad in everybody. And I try and focus on the good in him because I feel that would help him bring it out. I was reading Russell Brand's book on the way up here, and he's talked about a Native American story where they refer to the good and bad in people as 2 dogs, a black dog and a white dog. And he's saying that they're competing for dominance, but the one you choose to feed the most is the one that wins. Now, they're not giving him anything to rehabilitate him in prison. You know, they just want these guys to get back into drugs and to come right back to keep the prison in business. I'm not making excuses for him, you know, but it's just so sad. He's institutionalized. He spent 25 years of his life in prison. That's all he knows. And I've been in touch with his wife, and I've been in touch with a member of staff in the prison who wants to remain anonymous, who's keeping an eye out for him. And that person's told me that T-Bone's off the drugs in the jail. He's the spiritual leader of the building that he's living in. And he's standing up for people, and people are coming to him for advice about staying off drugs and stuff like that. But what happens is he gets out and he has no support structure, and he doesn't know how to function in the real world. And he just goes back to drugs. That's like his default position. So hopefully, this time when he gets out, you know, there'll be a better structure in place for him to function as a person. Yeah. Do you have a question, Steve?
Yes, sure.